Shall I start my presentation?
Yeah, yeah, it's okay, sir. No.
Uh, Thank you very much, respected Professor Bogde, sir. Uh, as I have explained in the morning session, I will be talking on the use of metal oxide semiconductors for catalysis. I am working as a professor in the University Department of Physics at Shivaji University, Kolhapur. I am working as a head of the department, acting head of the department of University Science Instrumentation Center, USIC, and Common Facility Center, that is CFC of Shivaji University, Kolhapur. In addition to this, university authorities have entrusted me the responsibility of sophisticated analytical instrumentation facility, SAIP. So I am coordinator of SAIP Center as well. Metal oxide semiconductors for catalysis. So my talk is related to material science, and I will be explaining the use of metal oxide semiconductor materials for the catalysis. Before beginning my talk, let me explain the various fields in which I am working since beginning. So I am working both on thin film and bulk materials. Thin films, they are chalcogenide thin films, metal oxide thin films, and these are used in various applications as wet solar cell, that is photoelectrochemical solar cell, then transparent conducting oxide in sensors, in catalysis, and bulk materials, particularly magnetic materials, ferrite material, hemi composites, and metal oxide materials. These are used in the composite, semi-composite applications, sensors, and catalysis. My talk will be centered around the use of metal oxide semiconductor thin films. So before proceeding, let me explain what the thin film is, though it is a very well-known concept. Let me once again visualize you all where we stand. The thickness of sheet of a plate, it is around 1 millimeter, and it is a acrylic board, brass board is the best example of this plate. The thickness of gold or aluminum foil, it is around 1 micrometer to 10 micrometer, and anything or any material whose thickness, third dimension, is restricted to 1 micrometer, or if the thickness of the material, if it is less than 1 micrometer, then it is called as the thin film. So we can define the thin film as a material which is extended in 2 dimensions but restricted in the third dimension. The research fields in which I am working, they are solar cells, transparent conducting oxides, then photocatalysis, gas sensors, and ultraviolet detectors. And then there is one more field in which I am working. These are called as memory registers or memristors. As these are transparent conducting oxides, before proceeding further, let me explain what the transparent conducting oxides means, or TCO means. Any material which is transparent to visible light and which is conducting is called as transparent conducting oxide. And these transparent conductors, they are neither 100% optically transparent nor metallically conducting. The best example of excellent conductor is the copper, and the best example of the insulator is the NaCl, which is transparent but it is insulating. So basic electromagnetic theory does not permit us that the material should be both conducting as well as transparent. Due to this, This is the formula for the plasma frequency for the material, and m is the effective electron mass, n is the carrier density, and other are well known constant. So depending on value of m and n, the material will decide whether to allow other radiation to pass through it or not. So this transparent also is the relative concept. So transparent to what? Transparent to visible light, or transparent to UV light, or transparent to IR radiation, or any other. So here I am concerned with the materials which are transparent to visible light and which are electrically conducting. This photograph shows the thin film materials which are prepared in our laboratory. As you can see, this is cadmium oxide whose conductivity is high and its transparency is less. So as you go from left to right, the conductivity decreases and transparency increases. So this is the representative photograph of the representative materials which we have investigated in the thin film form in our laboratory. Basically, these are oxide semiconductors. This gives you the comparison or the representation of the formula sigma is equal to Ne mu. Sigma is the conductivity, N is the electrical carrier density, E is the charge, and mu is the mobility. So on x-axis electromobility is plotted, on the y-axis electron density is plotted. And these colored lines, red, green, blue, and magenta, all these are the lines drawn at one particular conductivity value. So as you can see, at fixed conductivity, as you increase mobility, carrier density decreases and vice versa. So I have drawn one square here and ellipse here. So semi-metals, bismuth, lead, etc., they have got less mobility, but high carrier density, therefore they are highly conductive. Metals also, they have got high mobility, high conductivity, and high electrical conductivity as well. But we are looking for the material whose mobility also is more and whose carrier density also is more. And these are the oxide materials. So if you dope oxide materials with proper dopant, then it is possible to tune M star or N and thereby the effective electron mass. And therefore, we choose a material having appropriate value of N and M so that oxides also can be converted to the conductors. So transparent conductors, they have large number of applications in diverse field of science and technology. And some of the applications I have listed here. UV light emitting diodes, transparent screens, D Fosters, flat panel displays, touch panel, touch display panels, solar cells, and photocatalysis. So this is the application which I am going to explain in my today's talk. Photocatalysis. So what do you mean by catalysis? Catalysis is the acceleration of rate of chemical reaction by an catalyst. So if reaction rate is accelerated by a catalyst without taking part into actual reaction, then it is called as catalysis. And if this catalysis happens with the help of a photons, then it is called as photocatalysis. Now, is it possible to use the idea of or this photocatalysis for removing impurities in the drinking water? And this aspect is very important because our traditional filtration methods as water chlorination, sedimentation, slow sand filter, and etc. etc. They are not useful in removing the organic impurities or the biological impurities which are present in the polluted water. Therefore, this photocatalysis seems to be a low-cost technique where the semiconducting oxide electrolyte system is used with the help of the photons, and this is called as photocatalysis. And the very important thing of this photocatalysis is that we have harmless byproducts. So, what are various wastewater treatments which are there, which are in the day-to-day use? We can broadly classify these treatments into physical, biological, and chemical techniques. In the physical techniques, screening, sedimentation, flotation, filtration, stripping is there. Biological, aerobic, anaerobic treatments are there. Chemical treatment also there are there. Coagulation, chlorination, adsorption, ozonation, etc. etc. In addition to this, one more chemical wastewater treatment is there. It is called as advanced oxidation process, where the phenomenon of oxidation and reduction takes place simultaneously, and it is possible to degrade any organic compound. Therefore, physical and biological methods are not useful for removing the chemical impurities in the water. So what are again methods of advanced oxidation process? These are basically homogeneous process and heterogeneous process. Homo means same and hetero. So far as the same medium is concerned, then these are the homogeneous process. All these are the homogeneous process where ozonation, Fenton reaction, anodic oxidation, and all other methods are listed. But heterogeneous method, it is the photocatalysis is the heterogeneous method where two media, water and solid or liquid and solid media, they take part. So what are major advantages of the photocatalysis? The way in which this photocatalysis uses us or helps us in removing the unwanted impurities in the water, they are. So it offers good replacement for the energy initiative treatment methods. Harmless byproduct is the greatest advantage of this photocatalysis method. This can be used in destruction of variety of hazardous compounds, any organic impurity. And the mild reaction condition, modest reaction time, and lesser chemical input is the another advantage of the method. Minimal secondary waste generation is the advantages, and this can be applied for hydrogen generation also. If we apply bias between anode and cathode in the photoelectrocatalysis cell, then it is possible to create the hydrogen in the laboratory. When we think of using the photocatalysis and the photocatalyst, we have various options. We can use metal, we can use semiconductors, we can use insulator as the photocatalyst. But the probability of using metal as a photocatalyst, hmm, we cannot use it because with the help of metals, either reduction or oxidation process can happen. Therefore, the simultaneous occurrence of oxidation and reduction reaction is not possible with the help of metals. Therefore, we cannot use metal catalyst for the photocatalysis. For due to high energy requirements, as in case of insulators, the band gap of the insulator is very high. So you need to use UV radiation in the photocatalysis. Therefore, this possibility also is useless. But if we think of using semiconductor as the photocatalyst, then there is a chance because position of conduction band age and valence band age of most of the semiconductor lie in a such a way that they the valence band age is below oxidation potential of the water and conduction band age is above the reduction potential of the water. Therefore, we can use semiconductors for the photocatalysis. So how it takes place? For example, if you consider a semiconductor particle maybe semiconductor nanoparticle in the vicinity of the polluted water or the organic impurity water. So this polluted water may contain oxidized and reduced species. When we illuminate a semiconductor with the help of a light whose energy is equal to or greater than the bandgap energy of the semiconductor, then the photon is absorbed in the semiconductor, and the valence band electron, it absorbs the photon, it gets the conduction band, and valence band has hole and conduction band has electron. So electron and hole pair is generated, and this hole is responsible for the oxidation process, and electron is responsible for the reduction process. If the electron and hole pair, they are effectively utilized. But if they are not effectively utilized, then they recombine and they produce heat, and which this recombination process, it decreases the efficiency of the catalysis. So photocatalysis is the process involving absorption of a photon and production of electron and hole, and then the production of hydroxide radical or reactive oxygen species, and most of the electron and hole recombine, thereby limit the efficiency of the photocatalysis. Which are various semiconductors that can be used as the photocatalyst. Here, I have displayed the band position of several semiconductors in contact with the aqueous electrolyte at pH is equal to 1. So as I mentioned, for using semiconductor in photocatalysis, its valence band A should be less than or below the oxidation potential, and conduction band A should be above the reduction potential. This is the thumb rule. But here you can see the materials like gallium arsenide, gallium phosphide, cadmium sulfide, cadmium selenide, iron oxide, tungsten trioxide, tin oxide, they are not suitable for water splitting due to band positions. And CDS and CDEC, they are unstable. So the materials which we can use, they are titanium oxide, silicon carbide, and strontium titanium. And other oxides, if we tailor their band edges. So TiO2 is well studied photocatalyst. It is highly chemically stable, and its catalytic efficiency is very, very high. But use of TiO2 is uneconomical because it is costly. Therefore, we cannot use TiO2 in the photocatalysis experiment due to its cost. So zinc oxide is supposed to be a suitable alternate to the TiO2 because it absorbs a large fraction of the solar spectrum, and the degradation mechanism in the zinc oxide is very similar to that of TiO2. Therefore, we prepared initially TiO2 nanoparticles and used them in the photocatalysis experiment. So how to use this? So TiO2 nanoparticles are taken, and these nanoparticles, they are dispersed in the polluted water, and this polluted water is continuously stirred, and it is kept in the light source, or you can keep it in the sunlight. So what do you see with respect to time, the extinction, this is the optical absorption taken on the spectroscopic experiment with respect to time. So at the regular interval, sample is taken out and it is the spectrum is measured. It is seen that with respect to time, intensity of this peak is decreasing. Therefore, this TiO2 is, it acts as a photocatalyst. This is the idea. Now, zinc oxide, as I said, it is abundantly available, it is not costly, it is not toxic, highly thermally and chemically stable, and we can tailor its electrical resistivity. They are highly transparent and they have other properties. Therefore, these are the suitable alternate to the TiO2 for the photocatalysis. Therefore, we prepared zinc oxide polycrystalline powder and zinc oxide nanocrystalline powder. Nano means the particle size is less than 100. So in this case, the particle size in case of the precipitated powder, it was a 50 nanometer, 50, and the particle size of the zinc oxide powder prepared with the help of combustion method, it was 15 nanometer. So it is seen that the uh, degradation of rhodamine B. Rhodamine B is one of the organic compound, chemical compound, whose color is orange. And with respect to time, when you disperse this zinc oxide powder, it may be polycrystalline powder or it may be nanocrystalline powder, put it in the solution of rhodamine B, and if you eliminate it, this solution, and continuously stir this solution, we see that with respect to time, the color of the rhodamine B, it gets faint, and the rhodamine B gets degraded completely, maybe after 40 minutes or so. So it is seen that the size of the particle also is very important. If it is nano size, then surface to volume ratio increases, and therefore the more reaction site or more reaction areas, you can say, is available for the reaction to happen, and therefore it is advisable to prepare the material in the nano form to use in the photocatalyst. When a zinc oxide nanoparticle, if it is illuminated by the appropriate radiation, then electron and hole pair is generated. The electron is used to, or electron generates the highly reactive species, that is H2O2, OH dot, HO2 dot, and hole generates the reactive other reactive species like OH dot adsorb, that OH dot, etc. So what we see, when any organic compound having general formula CnMOM H2n minus 2m plus 2, it comes in the contact of these highly reactive uh, species, oxygen species, then CO2 and H2O are formed. So these are harmless or less harmful byproducts are formed. So this is called as mobile catalysis, where the photocatalyst, it moves in the solution and it is illuminated by the radiation. So it is in motion. So what are disadvantage of this mobile catalysis? So it is possible that during the reaction, the catalyst get modified. Irreversible reaction occurs with the byproducts. And very difficult thing is, after purification of water, it is very difficult to take out the catalyst. So separation methods, they are laborious. And therefore, the another strategy called as photoelectrocatalysis. So mobile catalysis is replaced by immobile catalysis, where the photocatalyst is not moving in the polluted water, but it is deposited on the substrate in the thin film form. And this immobile catalyst, there is a provision for application of a bias to through external circuit. So it is possible to enhance the photocatalysis by applying a potential, where there is effective charge separation and there is an increase in efficiency of the oxidation and reduction reaction at the semiconductor electrolyte interface. So the immobile catalysis or photoelectrocatalysis is the thing which I am going to explain. So this is the famous concept of photoelectrochemical cell or wet cell, where which has three components: photoanode, counter electrode, and the electrolyte. So counter electrode may be any metal which is not uh, which doesn't take part in the chemical reaction. Photoanode would be semiconductor oxide photocatalyst or a thin film form, and electrolyte would be the polluted water. And therefore, when we illuminate a junction between semiconductor and electrolyte, the electron and hole pair is generated here also. So very similar to thing which happened here in case of a nanoparticle, in thin film also, electron and hole pair is generated. And due to application of a bias, electron is attracted or it travels to external circuit and enters in the uh, electrolyte via other electrode, and therefore effective oxidation and reduction reaction takes place. And this is the energy band diagram of the PEC cell based on n-type semiconductor and a metal counter electrode, and here polluted water is the electrode. So far as the preparation of this electrode material is concerned, there are various there are various methods of preparation of catalyst, and these are the chemical methods, particularly chemical bath, spin coating, dip coating, Dr. Blade method, metering rod, slot casting, spray coating, screen printing, inkjet printing, and aerosol gel. So of these, we effectively prefer to use the spray coating technique, where interface between solution and gas is used to form very fine droplets, and these fine droplets, they are spread over the hot substrate, resulting into pyrolytic reaction, and the thin film occurs. So we have used for preparation of most of the photoelectrodes the spray paralysis technique for the deposition of the film. So these are the components of the spray paralysis technique. We need a compressor, then we need a mechanical system to uh, simple harmonic for offering simple harmonic motion of the nozzle over the substrate, then heating arrangement, temperature measurement and controlling arrangement, and the chemical. Uh, so the heart of this unit is the nozzle. Due to application of air or compressed air when it comes from the outer hole at the tip of the nozzle, vacuum is created. And due to this, the whole air column in the tube is sucked, and the solution is spread in the form of droplets on the hot substrate. Paralytic decomposition occurs, and a very uniform, highly uniform, and very adherent, high quality crystalline thin films are present. So the temperature of fabrication also is very important. You cannot deposit the film at every temperature. It should be optimum. So this temperature should be optimum such that the energy required for decomposition and pyrolytic decomposition and subsequent recrystallization of the material is suitable. So it should neither be higher side or it should not be on the lower side. So here I have schematically represented the various stages through which the aerosol they reaches towards the hot substrate while forming the deposits on the substrate. These are the results on zinc oxide. You can see that zinc oxide is C-axis oriented, highly crystalline zinc oxide, C-axis oriented. It is highly transparent in the visible range. You can see the transparency is around 80 to 90%. And this this transparency is due to formation of a nanorods, and the conductivity also is very very high. The high conductivity of this oxide. If this zinc oxide is in perfectly stoichiometric form, then it is in the insulating. It is insulator. But if it is non-stoichiometric, there are deficiencies. Then it becomes conductive. So we discovered what is the cause of the conductivity. It is found that the oxygen uh, defect levels and zinc vacancies, they are responsible for the high conductivity of the zinc oxide. This is the photograph of the fluorine doped tin oxide conducting glass of size 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter, on which in this configuration glass FTO and zinc oxide, this is FTO, and this is zinc oxide. It is the positive because we wish to use this zinc oxide electrode in the prototype reactor, which I am going to show you here. So this is the prototype reactor, which has anode and cathode. Hmm. The photocatalyst is a cathode. Counter electrode stainless steel jacket acts as a counter electrode. Then this photocatalyst is deposited on the transparent conducting oxide, and this electrode is deposited on the transparent glass so that this backside illumination is possible. You see, this backside illumination is important for generation of electron and hole and transportation of electron via external circuit. And there is a provision for giving the bias between anode and cathode. So this is our cell, and bias is given through potentiostat, and through inlet polluted water enters, and through outlet relatively pure water it comes out. So if we continuously circulate this water for maybe 1 hour or 2 hours, then it is possible to completely degrade the organic impurity which is present in the water. So this is the block diagram of the parallel fluid flow through PEC cell, which is used in the backside illumination in the recircular bench mode. So this is one cell. We can connect the output of first cell can be given as input to the other cell, and you can connect the cells in the series. So this is 3 cell arrangement. This is 9 cell arrangement. You can make any arrangement. Preparing, making arrangement of many cells is not so difficult. The difficulty is to fabricate the photoelectrodes having size on the size 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter, having high catalytic efficiency. So this is back view of the reactor. There is a provision for giving the electrical bias and the flow of the water, because from one end water enters polluted water and from other end it goes out. But it should cover whole surface area of the electrode. Therefore, a special path, zigzag flow path for the flow of water is created. If there is a facility of illuminating this cell by UV radiation or visible radiation, and you can keep this cell in sunlight as well. And this is 9 cell reactor, 9 cell configuration in series. And this configuration is done with the help of our collaborator, Professor Michael Newman Spellard, who was scientist earlier in the France. Now he is in Czech Republic. Since 1999, under the guidance of Professor C.H. Bhosle and under the supervision of Professor Michael Newman Spellard, we are working in this field. So here, this is a PEC reactor, and animation is there. So electrode, it has given a bias. It is illuminated with the UV light, and polluted water enters, and out the outlet relatively pure water comes out. And if it is continuously circulated for 3 to 4 hours, then it is possible to get potable water out of impure water. These are the results on the extinction spectra of the degraded water sample. So one dummy um, pollutant was taken as a salicylic acid, and it was dissolved in water, and this water was circulated through the reactor, and at the continuous intervals the samples were taken from the relatively pure water, and the spectra, extinction spectra of that sample, those samples, it was taken, and it is seen that with respect to time, with respect to time, the intensity of these peaks A, B, and C, these are the peaks in the visible. These two, this peak is invisible. This is in UV. It continuously decreases, and this is the signature of degradation of the organic compound with respect to time. If you plot the extinction coefficient, relative logarithm of the relative extinction coefficient with respect to time, it is seen that it continuously decreases, and the reaction constant K, mm, if it is high, the degradation rate is fast, and if it is low, the degradation rate is low. Chemical oxygen demand is the amount of organic compound in water required to completely oxidize the organic compound. So if COD of if a given solution, if it is high, then more amount of organic chemical is present in the water. If it is low, then the amount of chemical in the water has decreased. So with respect to time, it is seen that the COD, chemical oxygen demand, or the amount of organic compound in the water, it continuously decreases, and after 6 hours, the COD of a water is 6 mg per liter, and COD of a potable water is 6 hours. So it is possible to make potable water out of non-potable water with the help of the degradation reactor based on semiconductor oxide, metal oxide semiconductor photocatalyst. There are various parameters which affects the photocatalysis. Initial solute concentration, for example, if it is very high, then it will take more time. If it is low, then it will take less time. Light intensity, it should be optimum. It should not neither high or it should not low. The pH of the solution, it should be optimum. It should be around 7. Okay. If it is not, then you should have the serial dilution. The material of the photocatalyst, if it is TiO2 or zinc oxide, or it is doped zinc oxide, or it is a composite, or it is iron oxide, or something else, or it is a ternary compound. Temperature also is very important. The temperature should be optimal. The way in which the photocatalytic activity can be improved is we can make a composite system. For example, TiO2 has a band gap of around 2.6 electron volt, around 3 electron volt, you can say. So for illumination of TiO2, or for using TiO2 as a catalyst, you need UV light. And for example, you have tungsten trioxide or other compounds whose band gap lie invisible. So you need the visible light for degradation. So if you make a composite between these two materials, then it is possible to harness whole solar spectrum for catalysis. We can dope a metal, you can dope metal oxide semiconductor for tuning the band positions of the material. Non-metal doping also has been found to be effective for increasing the catalytic efficiency. Dye sensitization. See, acid, red forza, epoxy, all these can be used as a sensitizers in the catalytic experiment. So as I said, this is the solar radiation spectrum. What we can see that the band gap of zinc oxide or TiO2, it lie in UV region, and band gap of the material WO3 or iron oxide, it lie in visible. So if you want to harness whole spectrum, UV and visible, you need zinc oxide as well as TiO2 present in your catalyst. So the best way is to make the composite between these two. So if you make the composite between TiO2 and iron oxide, for example, then the band gap of iron oxide is invisible, band gap of TiO2 is in UV. The band positions are such that these this conduction bandage of TiO2 higher than the conduction bandage of iron oxide, and valence bandage of TiO2 should be lower than the valence band of iron oxide. So if when we this is before contact and this is energy diagram after contact. So due to charge transfer, band bending takes place and built-in potential occurs, and UV is absorbed in TiO2 and visible is absorbed in iron oxide. So in this way, both these semiconductor takes part in the photocatalysis reaction. So this is one way to improve the photocatalytic impurity. We have circulated the textile effluent outlet, the chemical which is coming out of the chemical factory. It was passed through the prototype reactor of uh, having catalyst zinc oxide, and it is seen that it is possible to remove all the chemical impurity. This is photograph before circulation. This is photograph after circulation. So degradation of textile effluent using zinc oxide in sunlight is possible. Even we have degraded uh, the seawater as well. Of course, it was not possible for us to degrade inorganic impurity from the seawater, but the organic impurity which was present in the seawater, it was possible to detect. We collected the samples of the sugarcane factory wastewater, and with the help of zinc oxide and gallium and nitrogen doped zinc oxide, it was possible to completely get potable water out of this very dirty water. E. coli is one of the bacteria which is responsible for the diarrhea or this. So, with the help of biochemistry counterparts, collaborators, we circulated the water containing E. coli bacteria through our reactor. So it was found that after 2 hours, when we use this in the reactor, whole E. coli, total E. coli bacteria, they were died. So it is possible to remove biological impurities as well with the help of. So we have published one of the review articles where we have reported that the pollutants which we have removed, they are toluene, salicylic acid, 4-GP, oxalic acid, MB, AO7, rhodamine B, textile effluent, factory wastewater, and E. coli levels. This is the list of the publications on the catalysis. So metal oxides, which are extensively studied for as a catalyst for photocatalysis, are TiO2, zinc oxide, iron oxide, tin oxide, zirconium oxide, MgO. This is the complete list of the oxides. There are ternary oxides also like zinc stannate, strontium titanate, bismuth, tungstate, etc. And the composite, which I explained, composites as well. This is the list of the collaborators. Professor Michael Newman Spallard, Professor J.H. Key, Professor Yusuf, Dr. Wah, and Dr. Arnath. Dr. Arnath now has shifted to Warangal, NIT Warangal. I am very much thankful to all my collaborators. And this work was not possible without the 100% contribution by all my students. So these are my past students who are working as a faculty at various institutes, and these are the students currently working under my guidance. So thank you very much, organizers, for giving me this opportunity to explain in front of this August gathering the work which is being carried out at my laboratory so far as the photocatalysis is concerned. So thank you very much. Now I request all the participants, if they have any questions, they can ask me in the direct mode. They can start their video and they can ask me the question.
Hello.
Kilazar sir bola. Kilazar sir bola.
Tell me whether it is better to go for photoelectrochemical solar cell or supercapacitor.
Sir, supercapacitor has other application, and photoelectrochemical solar cell or PEC degradation, it has another. This PEC degradation method is used for harnessing visible light or sunlight for separating or degrading the component. And supercapacitor, it is used for storing the charge. So it can be used in other purpose. This is used in other. So basically there is no comparison between these two devices, because supercapacitor is other device, and this is, of course, there also photoelectrochemical cell is there. Here also the idea of photoelectrochemical cell is utilized, but these are for two different approaches.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other question, please?
So there is question in chat box. What is the difference between photocatalytic degradation, photocatalysis, and photodegradation?
Uh, all are same. Photocatalysis is the catalysis with the help of photons. Hmm. I think the question should be what is the difference between photocatalysis and photoelectrocatalysis. So the basic difference between these two is in the photoelectrocatalysis we use electrical bias for effective charge separation, and in the photocatalysis we don't use any electrical bias, and in the catalysis we don't use photons. So the basic difference between catalysis and photocatalysis is that in the photocatalysis we make use of electromagnetic radiation for occurring chemical reaction. Any other?
Yes, sir. One
Yes,
more
sir.
question is there.
Uh-huh.
In between physical and chemical methods,
Mhm.
which one is good approach for photocatalysis application?
uh, Economically speaking, chemical methods, and property wise speaking, physical methods,
Okay.
because the thin film material, if you prepare with the help of via physical methods, with the help of physical methods, physical vapor deposition or sputtering, the quality is very nice. There is a nice control over the stoichiometry of the material, but the cost, the production cost is very, very high. On the contrary, if we prepare the thin film or the photocatalyst with the help of chemical methods, for example, spray paralysis, CVD, or chemical bar deposition, or any other chemical method, you you need less investment, and the material method is cost effective. Therefore, I will advise that you go for chemical method. Another advantage of using chemical
Hello.
is that to prepare oxides with the help of pre-pilot technique, and therefore, always go for chemical method.
Sir, which method is mostly preferred for wastewater treatment?
For wastewater treatment, after other treatment methods which I have told, chemical treatment method and biological treatment, the advanced oxidation method which I have proposed, it is suggested. Of course, there is a sonolysis. Of course, there is a H2O2 addition, hydrogen peroxide addition, chlorination also are there. But advanced oxidation process is the best process. पाटील सर, एम ए पाटील सर, प्रश्न विचारायचा आहे तुम्हाला काय? Hello. Any other question? Most of my students, they are present. I can see. They also
Yes,
can
yes.
ask
Now
the
this
questions.
now
Question.
सांगा.
How, question is from Ganesh Diwale.
Dilwale.
Dilwale. Okay, sorry.
My student.
Yes. How dopants affects TiO2 photocatalysis efficiency?
Okay, when you dope TiO2 material with the help of suitable dopant, then it is possible to take the Fermi level or the position of a Fermi level. Also, it is possible to tailor the band gap of TiO2 with the help of doping. Certainly, it is possible to reduce the band gap energy of TiO2. And therefore, doping will certainly enhance the photocatalytic efficiency.